So yesterday was National Coming Out Day, I guess. I always joke that not every day is National Coming Out Day for me because I look like this. Anyway, so this piece is called, I wrote this last semester in Jennifer's class, actually. And it actually was the only coming out piece I've ever written, and it's not about my sexuality, so that's fine. It's called Bathe the Body. The space is cluttered with empty bottles of organic Chardonnay and worn-out paperbacks. There's a queen-size mattress with an impression of a body, imperfect as it is. Above me, his stomach presses my lungs, and I can't do much but rest a hand on his stomach, flat skin on skin, our hips stone grating on stone. I'm not empty, I tell him, through thick-veined whispers. He expects to fill me to the dead-end brim. His eyes graze over the naked body I once called mine, and I wonder why he thinks he's a welcome guest. My body is a question mark, and I'm a selfish bitch to spend so much time thinking about it. He says bitches are wicked, nasty people, creatures with claws and sharp tongues. Sorry. My toes curl in agony, in ecstasy maybe, as he pulls me under. And something about the way he fits in places I'm told he shouldn't. Hard and swollen, he'll go further and further. I am landmarks and roadblocks. Another 100 yards he'll go. Fingers and nails scrape the skin from the cells from skin. Wide hands on thick hips, skin yielding soft as his rough palms run up and down. He speaks and his voice is syrupy thick, coats the tongue and throat, running in ribbon rivulets. You're not much, are you? My feet barely hold to his words. They could slide out at any moment. There's a moan somewhere in the acrid air. It's dancing, daunting, nothing but a fucking challenge. When I'm stripped, I'm either too much or not enough, and he can't seem to get a clear consensus on which it is. It's ironic the amount of times he calls his broad-backed body mine, to take, to lean on, to learn from. The skin on the wide berth of his shoulders feels like sand and sweat mixed with the stench of sex. He takes a seat on the highest corner of the wall and smirks with sour words on his sordid tongue. Look at your damn self. He kisses glossed lips, bites through the flaked skin and nerves. His arms wind their vice grip around a waist that's either too slim or too stout. His hands on hips, too large or languid. Hands, my hands, dig their nails into the naked, staunch flesh of his shoulders and finally, forcefully push him away. I am not the sort to simply follow suit, or once I wasn't. There is no value in subscription or submission. I would secede right then if I didn't see something softer, smaller. There's something waiting in the cavity where his chest should be. His face looks a lot like mine as it falls. He can't define what he and I are becoming as minutes, muscles melt away, words, voices, they run around in circles and lips, orbit the parameters and foregrounds. They sit on my shoulders, hiss ugly and scratch surface with stubble. They're men, boys, poison on the sharp tips of teeth. I could write an elegy from their words. Here lies the body that failed me. A little too much, honest to a fault, the queerest man I ever knew, my son, the sinner. A hard, good fuck, a hard pill to swallow, but I cannot write an elegy for a body I do not love. But I can claim my shoulders and thick hips with the hands that belong to me. I can use labels from the lips that line my lurid mouth that sound like something happy. They're harsh when fueled with fire, but my body won't burn when it can't decide what sort of body it is. I couldn't claim a label, masculine, feminine, or other, but I can breathe easier knowing my body never broke because I let it. I can be proud of lungs that never collapsed when clenched fists and stiff cocks laid claim to the parts lovers never see. Proud of my thighs that never willingly posed for a man posing as a god. My body, a sea of flagrant skin, fettered cells, and frantic sex. My body is a mess, but my body, no matter how elusive or imperfect, is not his.
We have an awesome community of writers, so thank you for those 3 pieces. Awesome. as usual. Our next three readers will be Ron Jensen, Diane Hardy, Brittney Allen.
Hi.
Hi, Ron.
I'm alright. Could support everything regarding this house. Just dropped every hole occupied by a mouse. Could support everything regarding this yard. Both things that were soft and things that were soft, things that were hard. Could support everything regarding this block. Just cut every tree and every yard. Laid it on the sail across the sea and discovered a land. Made history. We found a land that benefits all of us. And his name is Noah's. Christopher Columbus. Thank you.
This is a story that I wrote some time ago about my youngest brother. There were 6 of us kids, and they were all younger than me. I was 13 at the time, and the other kids ranged from about 3 up to about 8.
And put the microphone a little bit down. More closer.
They're like that?
Yeah.
Scotty was born, this is called the talking game. Scotty was born a little early, near the end of July. From the beginning, he was different than the rest of us kids, smaller and slighter in stature. His fingers and toes were delicate, as were his facial features. Large, beautiful eyes peering shyly from under long lashes, a petite nose, and a big, charming smile. His personality was different, too. We Blaine kids were noisy and outgoing, while Scotty was shy and unsure of himself. A good boy, he entertained himself, often declining to play with others. Most of the time, he wore a look of apprehension. Anxiety about getting his picture taken or playing with other children. Riding in the car was especially traumatic, as he thought he was always being taken to the doctor for a shot. Mama spoiled him terribly, calling him baby brother. It could have been because he was the last of 5 kids, or because she and Daddy hadn't planned him. Our whole family went along with her, responding to his every whim. Was he warm enough, hungry, feeling sad, afraid? For his 3rd birthday, we threw a party out in the backyard, where Scotty received many gifts: a train, Lincoln logs, an Etch-a-Sketch, and several storybooks. He especially liked the plastic wading pool that I gave him. Sherry Kay filled it while Connie got him into his swim trunks, and David set up the sprinkler, and the birthday party became a swimming party because he would not leave in order to play the games that Mama had planned. After 2 hours in the hot sun, I coaxed him into stopping long enough to eat his birthday cake and ice cream. It's funny, when you live with others, you get used to them and don't notice obvious things. That's how it was with Scotty. As I helped Mama and Daddy clear up the mess from the party, my friend Margaret, who was sleeping overnight, remarked, "Diane, shouldn't your little brother be talking by now?" I thought about it that night. When Margaret went home in the morning, I mentioned it to Mom and Daddy. It was a jolt to them as well as it was to me. None of us had ever noticed he wasn't talking. He made noises, plenty of them, laughing, grunting, yelling, but never talking, not even baby talk. "We've got to take him to a specialist in Salt Lake, Lorene," Daddy said. "I don't know why none of us noticed this before." "Baby brother's so normal in every other way, but I suppose you're right," Mama sighed. "He definitely should be talking." Just then, David came into the kitchen and overheard Mama talking. He says, "He talks all the time when we go to Randy's house." "He does?" gasped Daddy. "What does he say?" "Anything he wants," said David. "And you can understand him?" "Sure, Randy's whole family does." David headed out the back door. The air was thick with tension that night at the dinner table. I could see David had told Sherry Kay and Connie of the situation, because they never once took their eyes off Scotty, who sat oblivious to our stares. After saying grace, I got myself some creamed potatoes with peas and passed the bowl to the younger kids. When it got to Scotty, Mama dished him up a spoonful, and Dad shot her a dirty look. The carrots made their way around. Scotty grunted and frowned. Mama, avoiding Daddy's scrutiny, hurriedly passed them on. Then, trying to gain a foothold, she asked, "How was school today, kids?" I was the first one in my class to finish reading Heidi, Sherry Kay said, looking nervously at Daddy, who appeared not to hear her. At recess, we played dodgeball, and I got 2 girls out, bragged David. No boys, I bet, Connie taunted. I don't get what we're doing in algebra, I ventured. Old man Shields will probably give me a C. Daddy prided himself on being able to teach math to an idiot. When he didn't respond, I knew Scotty was in trouble. After supper, I cleared the dishes and the kids got ready for bed. Mama dressed Scotty in his pajamas and read him Caps for Sale. I watched Daddy's creased brow as she read. He alternately clenched his teeth and fists. He's feeling duped by a 3-year-old, I concluded. Mama finished the book and Daddy stood frowning. Time for bed, he announced. Scotty will want a drink of water now, I concluded. Mama finished the book and Dad stood frowning. Time for bed. Oh, I said that. I was right. He pointed to the sink. Usually that was all it took for Mama to jump up and fill a cup of water for him, often one of many. Tonight she didn't respond. Scotty yanked on her dress, while pointing to the tap. She sat despondent without looking at him. Now Scotty, his face red and contorted, grabbed at her leg and yelled, as loud as he could. Daddy, grinning like a set of teeth on a dish, said, if you want a drink of water, you have to ask for it. Scotty flung himself on the floor, his fists pounding. As he kicked Mama's chair, he banged his head up and down, his wild eyes never leaving her face. Daddy grinned savagely, and we kids watched in silence, remembering our own dastardly times under Daddy's icy stare. Scotty sat up, his face pinched with anger. Looking Mama straight in the eye, he took a huge gulp of air and held it. We kids watched in horror as his face turned as red as a beet. He's not breathing, he'll pass out, cried Sherry. Connie alternately covered her face with her hands and plugged her ears. David, with eyes closed tightly, lightly hummed to drown out what was happening. I closed my eyes and tried to think of something, anything, but to no avail. You kids leave the room, Daddy bellowed, now. Sherry Kay, Connie, and David filed into the hallway, their faces sullen and accusing. I sat rigid with fright, thinking, he's 13 and considered an adult or a kid. What if he turns his anger on me? Oh, baby brother, Mama pleaded, tears rolling down her cheek. That's enough, Lorene, Dad yelled. Keep quiet or you can leave the room too. After what seemed like an eternity, but was only a minute, it ended, was over as quick as it started. Scotty sat up, gasped for breath. He looked over at Mama, red-eyed and agonizing, then hesitantly at Daddy, irate and unyielding. Can I have a drink of water? Sure, Daddy bellowed. Even better, let's all have a dish of ice cream. This definitely calls for a celebration.
We're quickly running out of time. So we'll have Brittney come and read, but we might not be able to have time for our other 2 readers, Nathan and Shaun, so we can have you guys read next time. We want to make sure that that you're able to buy books. We have to be out of the room by 8:45. So is that okay with everybody? Is that
Well,
right?
as long as we're out by 9.
As long as you're out by 9. Okay, so we'll have our readers set up and we'll just see how much time, if we can get through everybody. So Brittney, come on up. And Jennifer, if you would like to go back, if people want to start buying books, if you'd like to talk to people, then we can start that process too.
Awesome. So I'm Brittney. I brought fiction tonight, actually. The thing about being graduated is that you go home after work and you don't have 3 hours of reading to do, like mandated anymore. So I've been playing around. This is super cheesy, gross, like it's October, so I'm like, oh, I'll write something like terrible. And this is why I never took fiction from you, Charles.
It's not too late.
Yeah,
Grad
you
school's
want
calling,
it.
Brittney.
You're gonna want it to be too late.
Grad school's calling you.
Jennifer was 20 the first time she played cabin games. Drunk off boxed wine on a leather couch in the basement while people she barely knew hooted and stamped on the floor above her, she tried to smile and refocus her eyes on the bearded boy from her English class. It's a game, the boy, James, hurried on, licking his bottom lip. We do it every July 4th weekend. I told you when I invited you out here. Out here was the mansion-like cabin of family friends of James's stepmother in Jackson Hole, a relation that made about as much sense as anything coming out of the 22-year-old boy's mouth. With a brain full of white wine, Jennifer tried not to show any confusion. Did James tell her? She didn't think so. She was having a hard time holding on to anything. Something like this, though. I mean, okay, Jennifer stammered. What she remembered most of all right then was how surprised she was when the flannel-wearing hipster shot her a text the day after Labor Day, saying he had a whole group of friends he wanted her to meet. They had only been on one date, and it had been 2 months prior. She was thrilled to hear from him again, and even more eager to have another shot. Can you run me through it again? I'm sorry, I think I'm drunk. The games, cabin games. His eyes bore into her, insisting that she already knew, and her gaze swam away from him. You said you wanted in. The sounds of the party upstairs grew louder, particularly the high-pitched voices of women, or so Jennifer thought. He was still staring at her, still willing her to get something. You're going to like it, Jen. She hiccuped, then giggled and let her head loll back to the couch, exposing her neck. I'd like it if you kissed me. The couch moaned gently as James positioned himself on top of the drunk girl, his thumbs gently brushing her long brown hair away from her neck as he leaned in and kissed her. When he bit her lip, she gasped, but the sound was quickly smothered by his insistent mouth on hers, his tongue demanding the space between her teeth. Drunk Jennifer felt her body raise under the pressure, driving the thumbs on her neck to bruising, but something wanting to fight kicked in beneath her breastbone. The thumbs were a challenge. Without hesitation, she nipped his tongue, whap. She heard the slap before she felt it, the skin on her cheek rolling away from the palm print that had caught her beneath the jawbone. Her eyes flew open and blinked. The slap, it had definitely been a slap, hadn't hurt, yet he had hit her. Didn't hitting equal hurting? Her face nearly tickled as she lay there, primally still, trying to think through the fog. His hand came to her face again and she flinched, but James laid it gently in the same spot he had just slapped her. There's a good girl, he purred. Good girl. Slowly, Jennifer twisted around to nuzzle James' open palm and kissed it. It seemed right, although she couldn't say why, except that maybe it would keep him from hitting her again. She wasn't even sure of that. James chuckled deeply as he slid his hand so as to be completely beneath her jaw, gripping her just hard enough to turn her face towards him. You and I are a team in the games, Jen. I could teach you how to play, but it's better to go upstairs. James, do we have a safe word? His hand twitched, grew more intense on her neck. Your safe word is girl cow. You say it, you're out of the games. Girl cow. James cocked his head at her, rolled her neck just enough to make her gasp. Don't tempt me by saying that again. Jennifer felt cold. I'm going to win this year, Jen, and you're going to be my partner. The smile he gave her was wolfish. Have another glass of wine and let's go upstairs. Thank you.
Okay, Nathan, come on up. We still have a few more minutes.
There's the other person.
We have Nathan and we have Shaun Anderson.
Sean, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to go?
Oh, it's fine. I've read this every. It is a nice contest.
Okay. Okay, so this is a piece of nonfiction that I wrote in Jennifer Seiner's class last semester. And the title is changing, so I'm just gonna skip it. Shit. The pile of warm dog shit sat under the window, surrounded by smaller chunks of shit around the room. My nose registered the scent before my mind could comprehend the mess in my roommate's bedroom. Hope, the Rottweiler my roommate had rescued from the Humane Society a month earlier, cowered over her first in-home shitstorm. My roommate had gone to work without walking or feeding her dog. Not my dog. Hope flinched away as I approached. Not my dog, not my dog, not my dog. She knew I would hit her before I did. Shying away from my open palm, she didn't yelp, just stumbled back, tried to escape open palm slap. Not my dog. I caught her across the muzzle before my other hand snagged her collar, and shoved her down, turning her to face her shit. Bad dog, I yelled. I hit her, not my dog. I straddled her, feeling the power, holding her down to a pile of her own shit. Most abusers have been abused, my therapist said, sitting across from me in her top floor office in the student center, years before I lived with Hope. But not all people who have been abused become abusers. I nodded like I understood why she told me this. I had just snagged a boyfriend by exploiting the fact that I had been abused. We had sat at McDonald's eating chicken sandwiches from the dollar menu and unloading our histories. He was the first gay man I had met, and I needed to know if all gay men in Utah were as fucked up as I was. I dropped the word molested. He responded with a story about being raped in Seattle. A month later, he shoved me down on his living room couch, his roommates in the back bedroom, gone to bed hours before. His hands slid up my body like the hands I remembered from my childhood. They slipped under my shirt, feeling skin as his mouth climbed my neck and sealed around my mouth, his tongue flicking between my teeth, his legs wrapped around my waist as his hands slipped back down my torso to grab the hem of my shirt. Hope's body quivered beneath mine. She didn't struggle, she didn't whine. My strength subdued her. I was power. I held her, my hands pinning her head in its position, unable to withdraw until I pulled away. When Hope came home from the shelter, we talked about where she might have come from. She wheezed in corners for a month as we snuck kennel cough pills into her treats. Her nipples hung 6 inches away from her stomach, signs of a recent pregnancy. She had curled at my feet that first night, heaving with illness, and I stroked her head. I think she might have been abused, my roommate said. She's so sweet. I had promised to love her because I felt like she understood me. She did understand me, curled under my weight. She understood, laid still, no attempt to struggle. I pulled myself off her and stumbled across the bedroom. I turned back at the door. Hope lay where I left her, trembling. Thank you.
That would tell people to do their evals.
Okay, make sure that you fill out your evaluations, and Nathan will put you on first for next time if you want, for the next open mic.